Good evening, folks, and welcome to another edition of An Hour with Bob, and happy spring. We finally made it. We made it through the winter, an easy winter this year, unlike what the last winter was a bad winter. But this winter, we had hardly no snow. I tell people all the time, people come up with so many negative things about New England and Rhode Island especially, but one thing for sure, we have the best weather in the United States. You think about it. You go down south right now. Do you see Texas? That the ice or the what? The hail. The hail was bigger than a baseball. They actually, you know, they'll say that sometimes. The hail is this big or that big, big as golf balls, big as baseball. But they actually put a baseball next to a hail ball, and the hail ball was as big as a grapefruit. And they showed it going through the windows and windshields and rear windows of cars. One house, I don't know why this one particular house got wiped right out. I mean, all the windows, it smashed through all the windows and the skylights in this one house, beautiful new house, just destroyed it. They get that. They get hurricane. No, they don't get hurricanes. We get a hurricane like every 10 or 15 years, it seems like. They get tornadoes. You go to California, you get mudslides, you get the fires. Not only California either. They had fires this spring in Oregon. They had fires in Washington State, Idaho, all the way down the west coast of not only California, but in the west side of the United States, I should say. They had fires in all those states. We don't get any of that stuff. Earthquakes, we don't get any of that stuff. Although I think we had an earthquake a few years ago, a small one. But we don't get the kind of stuff. We get once in a while, we get a little thing going on. But getting back to tourism or things that go on in this state versus other states, it seems to me that what happened recently with the tourism debacle in the state of Rhode Island, or that cooler and warmer thing that our governor tried to put forth, and the money spent on it. And we're going to talk about that tonight. I brought in a couple interesting people here tonight to discuss that and other things, just discuss a little politics too tonight. And first with me, I got Tom Ward from the Valley Breeze, the editor extraordinaire of the Valley Breeze. How you doing, Tom?
I'm fine, Bob. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you.
I'll correct you on one thing. I'm not the
Go
editor.
ahead.
Marcia Green is my editor. She's been there for 20 years.
That's right.
Does a great job.
Marcia Green.
I'm the publisher. Marcia goes back to Pawtucket Times.
She sure does. I remember her when I ran for office, and she was just a reporter in the Pawtucket Times.
She was a reporter and became the city editor, and then she started with me 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I've been lucky.
Her and what's his name died recently too.
Jim Barron.
Jim Barron.
Sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, they were there together at one point, just as reporters back in the day.
Yeah, we were all young once.
Yeah, huh?
No more.
So you've been there 20 years?
We just celebrated our 20th
anniversary. The 20th anniversary of the Valley Breeze.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a great ride.
And that has come a long way. That paper really is good reading, first of all. And secondly, it's free.
Thank you. Well, can't go wrong on the
price. No, you can't beat that.
But no, we've been fortunate. I've been fortunate. I started it with Jamie Quinn 20 years ago. Marcia started right at the beginning, and we've been blessed to have her as the editor. And as she's shepherded so many young reporters who started with us. Some have moved on to other places, but she's been terrific. And it has been quite a thing. I mean, we started out just in Cumberland, Lincoln. Then when Socket came, North Smithfield came along. Then we bought the Observer in Smithfield 10 years ago, and with that came North Providence, and then a few years later, in 2009, we added Pawtucket. So it's
they're actually is it the whole paper that's different, or just a section that's different?
A little bit. The 5 front sections are 5 completely different front sections, and they're all local.
When you say the front section, how much of the front section?
There are 2 in Pawtucket. There's only 1 section. That's a different paper.
Right.
The other 2 in Woonsocket and Cumberland, we have 2 different front sections. But the second section is the same.
Okay.
And then we have in Smithfield, you have Smithfield and North Providence. 2 different front sections, second section is the same.
Oh my gosh.
So it gets a little complicated.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, huh?
But we try to keep them as local as possible because, people in North Providence don't necessarily want to read about what's going on in the Woonsocket City Council.
Sure.
And vice versa. And so we try to keep them as local as possible. So.
And how many people are reporters? Because you seem to have a lot of input from different people.
Yeah, there's four full-time reporters, and then there's some copy editors, and because the copy editors they won't do reporting so much, but they'll take
Right.
a lot of emails and things and type them up and get press releases in the paper for people and do a lot of that smaller stuff, as well as then lay out and put the papers together on Monday and Tuesday. So that's what the copy editors do. And then we have about 6 people in sales and selling the advertising.
Advertisement, yeah.
And then,
well, that's how you fund it.
And then we have office people, yeah. So 21 employees.
So the paper comes out on Wednesday?
Well, the Pawtucket paper comes out on Wednesday along with North Providence.
Yep.
The Observer, the old Observer in Smithfield, as well as the 2 Valley Breezes in Northern Cumberland, Lincoln, and Woonsocket, North Smithfield, Thursday, yeah. Because we can't do it all at once. It's too much. If we tried to do it all in one night, I'd have people killing themselves.
Wow.
So
But you started it, right?
Yeah. I came from, my background was at the Woonsocket Call. I grew up in Woonsocket, and I started in Woonsocket, and moved to Fall River, the Herald News,
Right.
for the early 1990s, because they were going to get the new equipment, and the Woonsocket Call was not going to get this Macintosh stuff, and they were getting it in Fall River, and so I wanted to be there because I really had a good sense that was really going to be a game changer. And not that I was necessarily planning to start my own paper, it wasn't. But when I really got to Fall River and learned all about desktop publishing, which is really all it was, then it occurred to me that, you know what, a poor kid from Woonsocket can do this.
Now, when you say Macintosh, you're talking about computers.
Yeah, the Mac, the Apple Mac, the early Apple Mac was sophisticated enough that it did special things, that it allowed, really what happened with desktop publishing in the early 1990s, and I'm really not kidding here, it was always a rich man's game. Newspaper publishing, you had to
What
be
do
a
you
rich
mean a rich man's game?
Because you had to be. It was to buy the equipment to start a newspaper was millions of dollars.
Right.
And then it came down to hundreds of thousands in the 1980s.
Oh, now it used to be a rich man's game for me.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And then for me, my whole start was $15,000.
Really?
That's how much it cost. So I got a loan and started it and paid the loan off in 6 months. And so. But the thing that changed the world was that people like me, who didn't have backers, or didn't have money,
Right.
could start a paper.
Well, that's kind of the way the whole internet has made these
Right.
billionaires, is because they were able to do stuff in their garages. That
I wish I was one of those.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Now, you said you started in Woonsocket. What year?
I started at the Woonsocket Call in 1977. I was a news
Wow.
photographer. Yeah, I was a photographer at 77.
1977.
I know. Do I look that
Oh
old?
my, no, you look damn good. In fact, the reason I asked that is I had an incident in Woonsocket. It was on Channel 12, and Jack White ran the story for 3 days and nights. It was called Friends in High Places. It was an incident. I was robbed in my house in Woonsocket, and the guy that whose son robbed me, allegedly.
Yeah.
His father was well connected with the hierarchy in Woonsocket police and the Woonsocket politics.
Oh boy.
And the mayor was involved in it.
Something was wrong.
The chief of police ended up leaving. The safety director was implicated. There was all kinds of things.
When Jack White was on the case, you had to keep your
He
head
said it was
low.
the second biggest case he had ever did.
No kidding.
Or second
No
most
kidding.
interesting case.
Wow.
It was three days and 3 nights. It was called Friends in High Places. You look it up.
Yeah, I will.
I made the Woonsocket paper 31 times during that thing.
Oh my Lord. Boy.
Yeah.
That had to be a good case.
It was very, it happened in August, and it went on through the holidays.
And this was the late 70s?
No, it was the late 80s. No, it was 1989, I think it was.
Okay. Right.
I think it was 89. Yeah. And the only reason I bring it up, well, because you mentioned Woonsocket, but also I happen to come across, I'm going through my old DVDs of shows, because I'm fast approaching my 24th anniversary of An Hour with Bob and Bob's Big Adventure, May 29th.
Yeah.
And I'm going through old videos, and God, I'm looking through some of these, the formats that we started with.
Right.
We started with the 3/4-inch tapes, the big huge tapes, right, as you know. Then we went to the SVHS, which was like big time back
Yep.
in the day. I
Yep.
mean, everybody
And
else had
and
the
expensive.
VHS,
It was
but
expensive, too.
SVHS was
Yep.
expensive.
Yep.
And then to the Super 8s, and then to the Digital 8s, and,
Yep.
you know, and then to
Just
the...
kept evolving.
Oh, yeah, it just
everything
keeps going
does,
and
yeah,
going, and
yeah.
it got so damn expensive doing that stuff. The tapes got cheaper, but the
But the
equipment got
equipment was
much more
expensive.
expensive.
Yep. Yep.
Anyway, I want to talk. We're going to get into some of these,
Sure.
some of your topics of the papers.
Okay.
Papers, I'll say,
Yep.
right? But first of all, I want to talk about this cooler and warmer thing with the governor that actually really backfired on her.
Well, it did, and it's too bad. I feel bad. I was listening to your opening, and I'm like, well, there you go. I mean, Rhode Island, no earthquakes, no volcanoes. I mean, you said it. I mean, that should have been our thing. But no, the truth is, Rhode Island. When you step back and you forget about what just happened,
Right.
and I think all of us who are from Rhode Island have said this for years. How is it that we managed to screw this up? When you look at, we are halfway between Boston and
Right.
New York City and Worcester, and we're only 4 hours from the mountains, the White Mountains, and an hour and a half from Cape Cod.
And 20 minutes from a beach.
Yeah, and all of our own beaches, and Newport and Providence and the Blackstone Valley. How can we mess this up? And,
Right.
and the Slater Mill, where the Industrial Revolution began. All these things are right here, and so it is more disappointing and heartbreaking. I'm not angry as much as it's just heartbreaking that this happened. I can't speak for the cooler and warmer. It struck me. I understood the cooler part, the hipper part. I got that. The warmer
cool.
I didn't get.
But it sounded like it was made for a meteorologist.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the confusion.
But
of
I
it,
got to
yeah.
tell you, they supposedly there's a 5 million. The number gets thrown out here,
Right.
and they've already spent. I got a couple of the numbers here. They spent $400,000. Milton Glaser got $400,000 for brand development. He's already been paid.
Yep.
375 was spent for branding and event planning, and they still got 225,000 that available.
Yep.
3.5 million was budgeted for marketing, PR, including extensive digital advertising, the state tourism website, media trips. They'll blow a lot of money there. Media trips and other media expenses. They've already spent almost 1.9 million of that money, and 500,000 by the Commerce Corporation staff, the work that they've done. I'm going to show you a video that was done by a doctor friend of mine, who's he's a very busy guy. He's a great doctor. He's a facial reconstructive surgeon. He does implants and all that kind of stuff. And he's got a staff of
Well, that's
like
good
10
because the face of Rhode Island needs reconstruction right
10
about now.
and he's and the point is he doesn't have the time
Of
to
course
do
not.
this.
Right.
Yet he did it.
Yeah.
He shot.
Your point is a guy with some time and some inclination who's still got a job to do could do whatever you're
and
about
I'm
to
going to show
me.
you a
Yeah.
video that was done, and only one piece of the 30 seconds was footage that he didn't do. It was from another friend of mine. His name's Ron
It
Kitt.
wasn't from Iceland, was it? It wasn't from Iceland, was it?
No, this was locally done. No, this was
Okay.
locally done. It was in this particular footage. It was from a friend of mine named Ron Kitt. He owns Precision Graphics here in Pawtucket. He wraps
Yeah. Cars and buses
cars and trucks,
things,
and we'll
yeah.
talk about that as we had already.
Yeah.
And he owns this drone company, and there's a little piece in there you got to see that he did. Other than that, the doctor and a couple of people he had helping him did this from Wednesday last week, and today is Tuesday. So in the 6 day
days,
period, they put this together. You got that clip? In a 6 day period, they put
Beautiful Rhode Island. Prestigious colleges and universities. Fabulous multicultural dining experiences. The history, parks, music festivals, and the magic of Narragansett Bay's natural beauty. Everything from the celebrated arts to a world-class zoo. A cool capital city and a vibrant, heartwarming pulse. Life's too short to wait to see Rhode Island.
What do you think of that?
I think it's very good, and I think that's an excellent piece. And the point is that you don't have to spend the kind of money that was spent to come up with good video. I mean,
See Rhode Island, SEA, Rhode
SEA,
Island.
right? And I know the Journal has had recently a lot, asking people to bring their ideas to the table, and a lot of good ideas came forward pretty quickly. I mean, it wasn't, people just thought, well, I'd say this and that, and the Journal, I think a week ago, had a story with all kinds of different ideas.
They could have had a contest, having people come up with their own slogans and pick the best slogan, and
pick one or throw it out and just say, no, we're going to go back. But the point is, I think that, like, getting back to my disappointment was this. This thing was launched for this summer. See, the 5 million doesn't bother me if you get 10 million back.
Right.
That's what advertising does.
But it's not going to happen now this year.
That's what I'm saying, is have we now completely blown this? And I don't know the answer to that. We haven't spent 5 million yet, because the videos were supposed to be on American Airlines and in CNN Air at the airports and things like that. I don't know if that buy is still on, if it changes anything. I know you got to lead people to a website. The website was embarrassing, but as I said in my column last week, it does not take you weeks to fix a website.
Right.
Just keep it going.
Hours.
Well, you can certainly make, first of all, get the junk off it, and then start loading, and you can continue to work on it. It's not like a magazine where you hit a deadline.
Right.
You continue to work on it
As you're
all
going
the
along.
time as you go along.
Make
it better and better.
Yes.
And so that's the thing that disappoints me, and I don't know the answer to this. I haven't reached out to the state, but is this moving forward in some way, or have we lost 2016?
Right.
I doubt we've lost 2016. My guess is it's moving in some way, but like I said, it does not, when you have hotel taxes and gasoline taxes and all the things that, I am a big fan, I've said this in my column many times, I am a big fan of having outsiders pay Rhode Island taxes. I love that.
Yeah.
And how do you do that? You do that with tourism.
Sure.
You do that with hotel taxes, the taxes that the governor wanted to put on cottages down in southern Rhode Island, which I support, because for a while I owned a place in Florida and I used to rent it.
Yep.
In the first years, there was no taxes. By the time I left, I had to collect 11% tax on people renting my condo. And not half of it, but some of it went to the county, I think it was Lee County, and some of it went to the state of Florida. It's a moneymaker, and Rhode Island should be doing that, because we should get, and we tend to be, go crazy and say, I don't want to pay rent on my summer cottage.
Right.
Well, too bad, because this is what tourism is, and so you're either getting it from someone who can't afford it because they're renting a $3,000 cottage, or you're getting it from outsiders.
Right.
And I have no beef with that at all. That we get money from, like I said, you get it in gas taxes. There's so many places, the gas tax, they go in and they get a Slurpee and some shit, and they got to pay sales tax on it.
Right.
You want to drive people here. You'll get that 5 million back year after year after year.
But you got to get them here.
But you got to get them here, and that's why it was so disappointing. And I still don't know, if they're trying to get this up and running, if the ads are running on the airlines yet. But I hope they haven't pulled the plug on the whole thing and thrown in the towel on the whole year, because if they have, that's.
Weren't you surprised that they hired an outside firm in the first place? We got RISD. Isn't RISD internationally known?
Yes, I think that's the disappointment, was not so much that it went all to outsiders, which I should say, my daughter works in an ad agency here in Providence, a very successful ad agency that she's been with for 6 or 7 years. It's been growing the whole time she was there. And the talk among agencies in Rhode Island was that the state really wasn't looking for a Rhode Island agency.
In other words, you got no chance?
Well, I don't know if this got no chance. So maybe they were going to parcel it up. No one really knew exactly how it was going to play out. And I know my daughter's firm made a good effort, but in the end, it went somewhere else. Okay. Yes, at that time, I think a lot of people were saying, why in the world can't we tap into RISD, or just some of the part they came up with cooler and warmer? Well, the cooler part about Rhode Island being hip and artsy, and we got that. And
I still think that was set up for a meteorologist. I really do. Cooler and warmer.
But those are the artists. Those are the people that we want to tap into to get people to come to Rhode Island, and yet that money wasn't spent within Rhode Island. I was talking to someone earlier. I'm not sure that you necessarily have to hire nothing but Rhode Island.
No, how about a mix?
But some kind of balance,
hybrid.
and get RISD involved.
Right.
Because RISD, as much as we say RISD, geographically it's Rhode Island, RISD is a world institution. The people who are teaching at RISD are not Rhode Islanders. Some
Right,
of them may be,
right.
but they're from all over the world, and they're incredibly talented people, and we just didn't tap it. And so that part is kind of, you scratch your head.
And then, when especially I've had the governor on the show before she was elected governor, but she talked about how she wants to bring people into Rhode Island, how she wants to keep our students, our graduates in Rhode Island, and then goes and does that. Makes no sense. It's a contradiction.
It is a contradiction. I mean, every time you hear about jobs, you say, well, can Rhode Island just get a few of those jobs?
Exactly, especially these big jobs, $200,000 job.
Yeah, they all come from outside.
One of them used to be in Maryland, right? Used to work for the mayor of Maryland.
You reach a point where I think the governor's hitting a tipping point where at a certain point it just becomes condescending. It just becomes, well, nobody in Rhode Island is good enough.
Well, that's what the talk radio people are talking about. That's what they're saying.
And that's the tipping point you hit where I'm sure there are people in Rhode Island who are good enough to have some of these positions.
Right.
Yes, I have no problem with the governor bringing in outside help and outside talent. That's fine.
If they can't find that same talent locally.
Well, people have different skill sets. But the point is, after it's been more than a year, and you look around and you don't see any Rhode Islanders, you say, okay, what is this, a Yale club? I mean, what's going on here that the people in Rhode Island don't seem to measure
and
up?
you also don't see any cranes in the sky either.
Well, that's not going to happen quickly. I'm not going to beat her up for that. But things. I mean, at least there is something moving down at I-195. That one firm is coming, and there'll be something there, and they're going to fix the park. So these things take time. But yeah, there's no getting around the fact that they made a pitch for General Electric, didn't get it. Citizens Bank, of course, that's just moving from one part of the state to the other. So that's really not much help, except that, I mean, the good part is it'll put some tradespeople to work building the new campus for Citizens, so that's good. They didn't leave the state. We should be grateful for that.
Well, that's kind of like the Tucker Red Sox moving to Providence.
Right.
There's no real benefit to that.
But at least they didn't leave, because Citizens Bank certainly could have picked up and left, and they didn't, and thank God for that. So, Rhode Island still has a lot of good going for it.
We have an awful lot to offer, and they don't. It just seems to me they always miss the boat. And they you go out of this state. I've done a lot of traveling, and there's a couple of things that I have trouble with. And one is that when you go out of the state, especially you go to the Midwest or the South or whatever, and they'll say, where are you from? Rhode Island. Oh, New York. No, I'm not from New York. I'm from the state of Rhode Island. Right. And that shouldn't happen.
Well,
if they were promoting our state like they should be, out of the state, that wouldn't happen.
Right, and especially close by. I mean, look at how many people, and I'm sure the masters of the universe in tourism have figured this out. It's tough to get someone to come here from Salt Lake City. But by God, New York City has 8 million, 9 million people in it. Greater New York has 10 or 12 million people in it, and they're only 4 hours away. I mean, if you got 1/50th of the people in New York to come, the hotels will be filled.
Yeah, but do you know if residents of Rhode Island themselves don't realize the product we have here, how are they going to go out in the word of mouth and tell other people the product we have here? I would venture to say that 70% of the population, we'll ask Joe Fleming this after, 70% of Rhode Island's population has never been to Block Island.
I think that's true. And
that's sad.
But Rhode Islanders are like that. I mean, I remember talking to Congressman Cicilline and at the time Mayor Fontaine in Woonsocket, and I think the mayor was asking for the congressman to have an office up in Woonsocket.
Right.
And the congressman told me, he says, I met people who came to my office and they said
they've never been to Providence.
They've never been to Providence.
Oh, I know that. I lived in Woonsocket for a couple of years, and I talked to the tax assessor. He said, I haven't been to Providence in 12 years.
Yep. And it's too bad because there were some things, and I know Bob Billington set this up many years ago with the Blackstone Valley Tourism Council.
Billington's done
where
amazing.
Early in May, and I'm not going to get the name wrong, and I apologize. I'm sure if you look at the website, but they used to have 10 or 12 different bus trips, and you could sign up for one of them, and they were just trips around Rhode Island for the day.
Right.
And they might take you to Blythewold, or they take you to Newport, or they take you to different places. And the idea was...
Now, you just said Blythewold. There's probably only about 3 of us know where you're talking.
know what
you're talking about Bristol.
Yeah. Yep. But the point is, there are beautiful places in this state.
Yes.
And it's just so sad that people have never been to them.
I used to tell people, and I'll do it again, that the state's so small that I used to, when my kids were small, I used to take an area of the state and I'd put a map up and I'd have the kids blindfold them and they'd go and they'd peg
Yep.
the board and that's where we would go.
Yep.
Or we would take an area of the state and we'd hit every major road, every route.
Yep.
I can tell you where every route is in the state of Rhode Island. I probably still can.
But the truth is, there's
I mean, it's
no
easy to do, and
sector,
it would be
that
fun
benefits
for
our
a family,
economy like
and they'd be educated.
And they'd learn something, yeah, and they'd learn what a great little state they live in. And especially now with social media, if you get people, you know, the best spokespeople would be Rhode Islanders. When you have Facebook and things like that,
Right.
if people can now start to discover Rhode Island themselves.
That's why I like that.
and
I
then-
still like that.
Yep, and then start to you know, just get the word out to friends and friends of friends through Facebook and other social channels. This can be done without breaking the bank. And so, like I said, the thing that disappoints me most about this is not all the minutia of the you know, the tourism campaign,
it's
but it's
poorly
like we're
spent.
running out of time.
Right,
It's
that's right,
April.
that's right.
This is, you know, I was told by Betsy Wald before she was dismissed that it's like people take only 8 weeks to make their decisions. Well, okay, 8 weeks, April, May, June, we're up to
Right,
June.
right.
We're now at the end of the school year. So,
Well,
so
I
it's a
had,
very short window.
I had said that if you took, I have an RV available to me, and a big one, and I had said, you know this, I had said that if you took this RV and Ron Kitt, who owns Precision Graphics, would wrap it for cost. If we wrap this RV and I could go around the United States, I think I'm a pretty good promoter. And
Really?
and I've done it for, just imagine if I got
Yeah, I
paid a
think you
lousy
could pull it off.
$20,000 a year for the last 24 years. What's that, $480,000? I mean, I've been doing this, promoting the state all my life
Yep.
for nothing.
Yep.
And I think about Boston. Boston's one of the premier travel destinations
Yep.
in the world, right?
Yep.
They get credit for starting, what is given credit for the beginning of the revolution?
Well,
The Boston Tea
Lexington,
Party, right?
the Boston Tea
Not
Party,
true.
right, yeah.
Not true. The Boston Tea Party happened in 1774 in December, right?
Yep.
In June of 1773, a bunch of Rhode Islanders, they got an English schooner to chase it up the bay.
Mm-hmm.
The schooner was the Gaspee, a beautiful ship. They got them to chase them up the bay, and they knew the sandbar was coming up, and the boat that they were using didn't draft much, and so they went right over the sandbar, but the schooner didn't. It hit the sandbar and got beached, right?
Yep, yep.
They then went, and you know this story, they then went to downtown Providence on South Main Street in a bar. A bunch of guys got together and they said, you know, these baskets, they want to get us for, they want to tax our trade. Well, we'll fix their, but this was a tax ship, by the way. They got together and they rowed boats. They took boats after having a few brews. South Main Street in Providence, folks. They went down to Patuxent Village, which is where the Gaspee, people know it as the Gaspee Parade, the Gaspee Days and all that stuff, but it was actually based on the ship, the Gaspee, not the Great Gatsby either. And they went down there and they got onto the ship and they got the captain of the ship, and they didn't kill him, but he got shot.
time
He
to
ended up
go,
getting
yeah.
shot, right? But he didn't get killed, I don't think. They took him off the ship and they burnt the ship
burned it,
right to the water line.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of the Revolutionary War. It was not throwing a bunch of tea off the side of the boat that, in plain English, pissed off the English or the British.
Yep.
It was burning one of their ships that put them.
Boston had better PR.
Absolutely. No, that's what it's all about, though, is it not?
Yeah, yes, it is. It is.
And I would have challenged
history
that.
belongs to those who write it.
Exactly. That should have been challenged a long time ago. And even if they don't want to challenge it, just say it anyway. I mean, they should be talking about that.
Yeah.
The only thing that people, other than folks, be honest with me, did you think about it, or did you know what I just said to be true? Did you know that that actually happened? Did you know that the Gaspee was anything more than just a time in June, that
Great
people
time
have
in
parties
Patuxent,
down in
yeah.
June? June 15th, I think it was.
Well, we do have a rich history, and the question is, like I said, when you just look at the amount of people, including Boston, who are just not that far from Rhode Island.
Right,
Even if you concentrated the marketing to a 200-mile or 300-mile loop, you should be able to get a lot of people in here because you know, if you live in Western Mass is the Berkshires, it's beautiful, but
Sure.
they don't have beaches.
Right.
You know, if you live in Boston, you don't have Pawtucket, you don't have the Slater Mill, you don't have the
That's
Blackstone
right.
River.
You don't have the
If you
beginning
live
of the
in-
Industrial Revolution.
Right. If you live in Connecticut and you're locked in by Long Island Sound, which doesn't have any waves and it's not pretty, you don't have a Newport, you know. So
Right.
so you'll travel. I mean, go to Misquamicut any Sunday and look at how many Connecticut plates are in that parking
Go to
lot.
Blue Shutters State Beach, which I consider the most beautiful beach in the state of Rhode Island. It's number 8 on your, if you look at the map, the Rhode Island map,
Yeah.
it's number 8, listing of beaches. Blue Shutters State Beach, it's a state beach, and you will see only about 1/10 of the cars have Rhode Island plates on them.
Yeah, I mean,
They're all Connecticut and New York.
Yep.
Why do they come up here? Because they know we have better beaches.
yeah, we got the waves.
We got the waves, but they're not promoting the state because we don't promote the state
Right.
enough. And that's what you got to do. You got to get the local people to promote the state,
Everybody-
local people to understand what nobody's done it better than you mentioned Bob Billington
Absolutely.
in the Blackstone Valley. I mean, without him, he got internationally recognized a few years ago, right, for all the work he's done in the
Absolutely.
Blackstone
It's
Valley.
It's an amazing thing he's done for 30 years now. Amazing. Yeah.
I remember when he started doing that.
I
stuff.
do too. Just this little guy, but he had a vision. He knew what he wanted. He got all the little bargain outlets together and got a little shopping thing going, and it is an absolute miracle what he's done. I mean, nobody has done anything like that.
I call it the state of first, by the way. In fact, you just brought up another first. The original discount store in the country
Yeah.
was in Cumberland, was it
Ann-
not?
Ann and Hope.
Ann and Hope.
Yep.
You know, you can go on and on.
Yeah.
I think, according to size or based on proportion to size, Rhode Island has more historical sites than any other state in the United States.
It wouldn't surprise me. I don't know
think
that for a
that's
fact,
true.
but it wouldn't
I think
surprise
that
me.
I'm pretty sure that's true. That we have more.
There was a time, and I think most of the churches are still active. There was a time in the city of Woonsocket that within a 1 square mile area, there were either 10 or 12 churches. I mean, it's near the North End and Blackstone Street. It's amazing when you realize it. And they said it was the most high concentration of different congregation churches in the country.
Really?
And nobody knows that fact. But you drive around, you're like, there's another one.
There's another,
one, there's
yeah,
another
yeah,
one, there's
yeah.
it's
Well,
amazing.
again, here we go with the First Baptist Church in the United States, downtown Providence, the first Jewish synagogue in Newport, Rhode Island.
Yep.
I mean, there's
We have a lot to talk
one
about.
right after the other.
We have a lot to talk about.
Well, we're gonna have to put this off for another
Sure
time. 'Cause
thing.
I gotta let you go because I gotta go talk to that guy over there. Is he on the phone? No, he's not on the phone.
I think he's
all
done.
right.
It's been a
Tom,
pleasure.
Thank you for stopping
Thanks
by.
for having me.
Now, Wednesday they can get you. The paper comes out in most places,
Pawtucket and North Providence on Wednesday.
and Thursday.
Everywhere else on Thursday.
Everywhere
Smithfield
else on-
area, Woonsocket area, Cumberland, Lincoln.
The Valley Breeze, folks.
Thank you.
Pick one up.
Thanks.
Everywhere. I know
Have a
I
great
do.
day.
Hang in there.
Okay.
Give us a clip, and we'll be right back with an hour with Bob. And again, thank you, Tom Watt.
Pressing the price of its currency, lowering its value relative to the dollar.
Which country has the intent to be our greatest adversary?
Probably China.
China.
China, again, me growing up, it was, you know, the Red Chinese, the communist threat to America.
If there's a point that I want to surprise people with, it would be this. You know, we are funding Chinese oppression.
So China can't come in and lobby the American government and say, hey, what are you doing? You can't mess with our business. But when Caterpillar and Walmart and General Electric are in the government's face saying, you know what, this is just fine.
Well, for the same reason, when I asked my son if he took cookies out of the cookie jar, he won't look at me. He knows he's guilty.
This building has been empty for decades now. Empty decades.
Well, they say to go get an education, but there aren't enough jobs for workers with college degrees.
You can't tell in the catalog. It's not required to be printed on the catalog. So it's blind. They'll say American inspired. And it's actually made in China.
The industry I was involved in is totally gone. And you know where that work is? Overseas.
President Hu, members of the Chinese delegation, on behalf of Michelle and myself, welcome to the White House.
on an Hour with Bob, and look who's with us now, Joe Fleming. How you doing, Joe?
Bob, great to see you again.
Nice to see you. You look great, man. You look like $1 million. Well, you got younger, huh?
Getting older, unfortunately.
How long we go back? How many years?
Probably to the 60s at the Boys Club.
Oh my God, the 60s.
Oh yeah.
The 60s.
60s, the Boys Club down in East Avenue.
Wow. Yeah. Now the East Avenue Boys Club's no more, right?
That's no more. Everything's down on School Street.
Now you had mentioned off camera about the new Boys Club. Now, what's it like now?
Oh, the new Boys Club is basically we added 18,000 square feet to the building that was there already, and it's a teen center.
18,000 square feet?
And it's a teen center with another whole gym for teenagers. The club has already increased their attendance by 50% from last year.
Wow.
Kids are coming in droves down to the club. It's a great place down on School Street. Very focused on education. Kids come and do their homework every afternoon right away.
Actually, I saw the commercial. I love that commercial.
Yes.
It's great. Shot in black and white, I think.
And a lot of those kids are from the Pawtucket and Providence Club.
That is such a great commercial. What is it? It's like a spin-off on
Fight Club.
The Fight Club. Yeah. Three.
It's great. Duffy and Shanley really put everything together for us, and it's the 7 boys clubs in the state of Rhode Island who did that together. And it's a really good thing so people get a better idea of what's going on at the boys and girls clubs in Pawtucket.
Right. And it is the Boys and Girls Club.
Right. It's changed from the days we were there.
Yeah, and remember the card, the card, it was a
little
hard
card.
You could kill somebody with that thing.
That's all gone.
What do they use now?
I just think, I'm not really sure what they use nowadays.
Now, what is the membership there?
I'm not sure what they're charging, but I know one thing, if it's a Pawtucket Central Falls kid, they can't afford it, they take care of them.
Right.
Just like they always have.
As we had dealt with, I should say, when my dad died when I was 7, and I had a whole bunch of brothers and sisters, as you know, and me and my brothers all joined the Boys Club, and it was that was a great place.
I grew up there from the time I was 8 years old. Great place, great influence on my life.
I made a shoe shine box there in the wood shop when I was 8.5 years old with the help of the woodworking director, whatever he was. And I used that. I made money with that thing from the time I was 9 years old to the time I was about 12 years old. From Pawtucket, Central Falls, into Cumberland, shining shoes, and back home.
I spent time in the print shop down there learning how to do the printing
that too.
stuff.
Made the cards.
Right, and I ended up becoming the printing instructor as I got older.
Do you know, you just made me think of something. Do you know I made, one of the cards I made, remember Paladin?
Yeah.
What was the name of it? Have Gun Will Travel. I made the cards with the insignia in the middle there. Was it a chess piece or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah. Have Gun Will Travel. By the way, he was from Rhode Island.
Rhode Island.
Right?
Yep.
Paladin, the guy that
I think he was the
series was made from. Was the guy from Bowerville or something. But my God, that goes back in the day. Is what's his name? What's his name? The local
director?
guy. Who was it?
The director of the club now?
Yeah, no. Back in the day, who was the director?
Mike Pappas.
Pappas.
Oh, yeah.
Is he still with us?
No, Mike's passed away.
Did he?
Yeah, Mike was a great guy.
Oh,
absolutely.
He was awesome guy. I mean, I would see him 30 years later, he'd go to me, Venturini!
Oh, yeah.
He remembered everybody's name.
He did, and he was really great for the club. He got things going really well down there.
Now, after you graduated from college, you went on to teach.
Yes, I spent
over at Samuel Slater.
33 years at Slater Junior High School.
Wow, 33 years.
Yeah, I left in 2009 as the assistant principal of the school.
Wow.
I loved every minute there. We had some great kids over at Slater all those 33 years. I still run into them all the time.
Oh, I bet you do.
It was a great time. I'm so happy I never left that school.
Wow. And then you started Fleming and Associates.
Well, I started that while I was teaching.
Yeah, that's right.
I was more part-time. I've been doing that for about 32 years now.
Wow.
And we've been doing polling and political consulting in the state of Rhode Island mostly.
Yeah, I remember when we were working on the Kinch campaign back in the day.
1981.
Yep.
That's where I got my start in politics in 1969, working for Henry Kinch when he was running for city council. And he tells the story. My first job in politics was to cut his grass so he could go knock on doors.
That's 69, huh?
Yep.
My first political campaign that I ran for office was 1972.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost in a three-man race by 2 votes in a recount.
Okay.
For state representative.
Who'd you lose to?
I lost to Douglas Duran.
Duran. Yep. I remember that.
And then I ran 4 years later. After they reapportioned my district, they reapportioned me right out of my district. They took 1/3 of Woodlawn. Actually, they took 7 streets in Woodlawn, Joe. 3 streets to the left of me, 3 streets from the right of me. In fact, Dickie Kiley, I ran into him and he says to me, I got to show you something. He says, I was at the State House today and they had the reapportionment committee meeting. He says, and the question was, where does Bob Venturini live? He says, they took 3 streets from you to the left, 3 streets from you from the right. Your street is in the middle. And they took me out of Woodlawn, where I was born and bred, and they put me in Fairlawn. So I said, you know something? I'm running anyway. And I did. And I lost by 37 votes.
Well, I think that
38 votes.
That district today still goes from Woodlawn to Fairlawn. Carlos Tobin's the state representative.
Right,
of that
exactly,
right now.
exactly.
And it covers that big wide area.
Yep, because I helped get San Bento elected back in the day. Oh God, been involved in a lot of elections over the years. Now, speaking of elections, what is crazier than this presidential election? Is there anything nuttier?
I don't think so. This is
especially on the Republican side.
On the Republican side, this is the strangest presidential election I've seen, and I've been following this since in the 60s.
I go back to Nixon, Kennedy. I worked that election as a kid, young kid.
That was a little before my time. I was still a little young then, but this election that we started off with 17 Republican candidates, we're down to 3. I don't think anybody really gave Donald Trump much of a chance early on, but I think what benefited him was he had a message of anger, and a small percentage of voters latched onto that, and because there were 17 candidates, that propels you to number 1.
Right, right.
And then he
had a different message than anybody else.
And he kept expanding upon that message as time went on.
And it seemed like he couldn't do anything wrong.
No,
the weirder he got, the crazier he got.
And every time he seemed to come out of the spotlight, he did something strange or made some comment that would get people's attention again to keep himself in the spotlight. Because if you remember early on, Ted Cruz was being very nice to Donald Trump.
Right. Oh, they were friendly.
Right, because I really believe Ted Cruz thought Trump wouldn't last and he wanted to get all Trump supporters. Because Ted Cruz was trying to position himself as the outsider. Now, strange in politics, here it is 3 or 4 months later. Now Ted Cruz is the insider. That the establishment wants Ted Cruz because they don't want Donald Trump.
You know what I love? I love what was it? Was it South Carolina senator that said that if somebody shot Ted Cruz, shot Ted Cruz in the Senate chambers, the court was in the Senate. No one would convict him.
Senator Graham, right?
Graham, that's right. Yeah.
It's amazing that Ted Cruz had no U.S. senators backing him until just recently. Because now they look as they want him as the establishment candidate.
And what's ironic is, just like in 2008, a one-term senator.
Yes.
Right? He's in his first term.
Yes, he is.
Right? Cruz is only, what's he, in his 5th year or 4th?
4th or 5th year, I'm not really sure
exactly. 4th or 5th year of being a senator. We're not talking about somebody who's been around for, like Sanders.
Right. Or somebody like a Ted Kennedy when he ran and stuff like that. Was running for years.
Yeah. So you can't really say, or they can't really say he's the establishment, but he's the closest thing to an established candidate. But you know what I thought was odd, and I think you probably agree with this, that when Trump first ran, I actually thought he was just doing that to help Hillary Clinton.
Well, I'm not really sure. I mean...
Oh, I don't know that that's true, but at first I thought that.
Well, I mean, I think
I didn't think he was serious. Let's put it that way.
Well, I think he was serious in the sense where he wanted to get a message out there to the voters that I'm angry and I want to see change in this country. And a lot of Republicans in this country have said, we've been voting for Republicans all along, getting them elected to Congress, but we're not seeing any real change.
Right.
So maybe this guy who's saying outrageous things might give us the change. And I think that's how he picked up his support. And it grew bigger than he thought, I really believe.
And he wouldn't be too bad off if it wasn't for the really over-the-top stuff he says. He would be a lot better off. He wouldn't have such high negatives as we talked about off camera.
The over-the-top stuff is helping him in the Republican primaries. It hasn't hurt him as of yet. However, come the general election, it's a whole different story.
It's going to kill him.
I think it's going to come back and really haunt him.
He's knocked out the woman. The woman won't vote for him. The Spanish-speaking people won't vote for him.
I mean, among females, the gap between him and Clinton was 29%. Mitt Romney was only 12% behind Obama 4 years ago, and Romney lost convincingly, being behind by 29%. I don't know how he's going to close that gap. I'm sure it will close.
And that's with a woman candidate whose negatives are almost as high as his.
Yeah, if I was the Republican Party 12 months ago, I'm saying, well, this is great. We got a lot of candidates running. Hillary Clinton has high negatives. So as long as we have a good Republican candidate up there, we have a good shot to defeat Hillary Clinton for president.
Right.
Well, now you may have a nominee that has higher negatives than Hillary Clinton. It makes her look a lot better.
And you know what I think is amazing? You got Kasich, who has won only one, his home state, yet in a head-to-head battle in a general election, the polls suggest that he would beat Hillary Clinton.
Right. The thing with polling to keep in mind is poll is nothing more than a snapshot of when you take that picture.
Right now.
People's opinions change. So while you may be ahead right now, come election time, you may be behind.
Right.
When Barack Obama started, he was way behind Hillary Clinton. He was the president, she's not.
Right.
So people's opinions change. And all a pollster does is get a snapshot of how people feel at that time. Things can happen that changes people's opinion. And that's what you're going to watch out for between now and November.
Well, I think the big thing hanging over Hillary Clinton is that the
emails.
Emails.
That's true. That could come back to haunt her come the November
That could
election.
end the whole show.
It could, depending on what happens there.
I mean, is it possible that you could get indicted?
I have no idea. I'm not a lawyer. I am not.
Right.
So I wouldn't.
But I mean,
venture
the
to go
fact
that
that
way.
they're still investigating
Right.
could lead you to believe that there's something there.
Well, the federal government tends to investigate for a long period of time, to make sure they have things right.
But
before they
as we
go
know,
forward.
the federal government doesn't investigate something unless they're pretty darn
check it,
sure they
right.
got something to go for, and they don't want to ruin their record because they have like a 97%. I remember during the Surratt election, Surratt election, the Surratt debacle, whatever you want to call it. Brian Surratt, the mayor of Pawtucket, went to jail, but when he was when they were investigating him, I had talked with the FBI agent. He had said, "We don't take anything unless we're
usually
sure."
when they do an indictment, they have the ducks all lined up.
Right.
But it's getting to that point first.
I do recall the number was like 97%.
I think once the indictment comes down, they get probably a very high rate. But again, we don't know what's going to happen there. And right now, it looks at this point, again, we don't know because the Republican convention right now looks like it may go to an open convention.
Right.
And at that point,
it appears that way.
Yeah, anything can happen. I mean, Paul Ryan made it very clear today that he's not going to run for president. But again, we've seen stranger things happen. He wasn't running for speaker either. He is the speaker today.
Yeah, and here's a guy that ran for vice president 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, so I mean,
he wanted to be vice president 3 years ago. Now he doesn't want to be president. That's
so I mean,
kind of odd.
come the convention, I mean, it depends on how close Donald Trump gets there at 1237. Also, keep in mind, people talk about the rules of the convention.
Right.
The rules haven't been made up yet. Every convention has a new set of rules. So the rules will be made up as you get going.
Now who makes the rules?
They have a rules committee. Yeah, right. There's a rules committee of the convention delegates. Correct, that's the way to do it. The Republican Party. So I mean, you're going to see changes coming between now and then. But right now, it looks like unless Donald Trump does extremely well, it's going to be tough to get 1237. Right now, he's doing well in New York. He's over the 50% mark in New York. I saw 3 polls today. Everyone had him over 50%. I saw a Connecticut poll.
But it's not a winner take all.
No, it's not. But if you get over 50%, you get a large number of statewide delegates, or I think you get all the statewide delegates or something. So it helps him greatly. That's why he wants to be over 50%. Connecticut, I show him one of the polls I saw today, I think by Emerson College, was he's at 50% there also.
Okay. But in the South, he doesn't do as well.
No.
Right?
No. Cruz, he did okay in some areas. Cruz did well in some areas down in the South. But, I mean, we're going to have to wait and see on where the delegates come out. Right now, you got California and New Jersey in June. So this is going to go on. This isn't going to end in the next couple
California
weeks.
will be big, huge.
Right.
California
exactly.
will be huge.
And, I mean, next week we have New York. But after that, we have 5 East Coast primaries.
Right.
Rhode Island, Connecticut, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Maryland.
Right.
So, I mean, there's going to be a lot of delegates at stake there. Not as many in Rhode Island, but there's still a lot of delegates.
But Cruz being the way far to the right, it's unlikely that I would suspect. Although because of Kasich, I guess, maybe Trump won't do as well as he suspects.
Well, again, keep in mind, we're talking about Rhode Island now?
No, I'm talking about Pennsylvania and Maryland.
I think Trump's going to do okay in those areas. And I think that's what he's looking for. He's counting on
Right.
doing one of those areas, and Cruz is going to have problems. Some of the polls I've seen, even in New York, Kasich's running second, Cruz is running
Right.
third.
That's what I mean. Yes,
So
exactly.
I mean, these next couple of weeks could be very tough for Ted Cruz.
But
you
he,
know,
what is he? He's only like 150
correct
behind, right?
Right. But what we got to look to see is in the next week, is this number going to move farther away, or is it going to get closer? Probably going to move farther away for Ted Cruz.
And then the general election. Imagine if Trump is the nominee, and Hillary Clinton still has that cloud over her head, and she becomes the nominee.
Right.
Because when you think about it, the thing that I find amazing is that Sanders, what is he, 74 years
74.
old? 74 years old. Anybody, he has what about 60, 70, or probably 70% of anybody under 35 years old is supporting him. But then again, we both know that they're not very good voters.
The 18 to 39 years or 29-year-olds, they don't vote very heavily in elections.
Right.
Barack Obama mobilized them 8 years ago. But again, the turnout is a lot lower, especially in primaries. The ones who do vote in the primaries are the older people over the age of 60. They tend to be out there voting more often.
Right.
So in the Rhode Island primary coming up on April 26th, obviously you're going to probably see a lot more elderly people voting or older Rhode Island residents voting than younger residents.
Now, do you think? Well, this will air before it happens. Or do you think Trump will get to come to Rhode Island?
I would not be surprised. I think he thinks it's a state that he can win. It's a state that you can win with only a little bit of money,
Right.
Because the market is
But
so
he hasn't
small.
even spent any money. He hasn't had to spend any money. That's the most amazing thing of it all.
He could do a couple small TV buys in the 3 local stations.
The
and
guy's
get
the best
saturation.
off of any candidate financially, and yet he spent the least amount of money.
Well, again, because he's saying things that gets the press to come to him.
Right.
And he seems to be available for the press a lot, where other candidates are not as available as much. He'll talk to the press. So as a result, it makes it easier for him.
You notice when he says something, he always says it like 3 times or 4 times. He says the same thing. He'll say it, and then he'll just change a couple words and say it again, and then he'll say it a 3rd time.
Yeah, and I think with Donald Trump, you'll find he doesn't want to talk policy too much.
No, because he doesn't have it. He has no policy.
He wants to stay in the debates. If they start talking policy, he wants to get off that.
Right.
And that's why I think you see he doesn't want to debate anymore. Now, I agree with him. They've had 12 debates. That is enough of debates. But at the same time, now there's 3 candidates. They want to zero in on policy. I don't think he wants to really discuss it that much.
Right. And it would hurt him to do that. Right.
I mean,
it would be dangerous for him to do it.
I mean, the Democrats are still debating. I think it's Thursday night. Tomorrow or Thursday, Hillary and Bernie's debating again in the state of New York.
Now, what time is that? Tomorrow night?
I think
what's
I don't know if
going
it's
on there?
tomorrow or
'Cause
Thursday.
I know
It's one of these.
he was complaining that
Right, they are debating this week.
she wanted the debates during the
Right.
NCAA basketball, and then they want to do an early morning debate.
No, they are debating this week in New York. I saw polls today in New York showing her in the lead anywhere between 11 to 14 points.
How do you think that's going to end up?
I would think she'll end up winning New York. And again, right now, she has such a big delegate lead. If she just runs even with them the rest of the way,
Right, she's
she
going to win.
wins.
She's going to win. You know what I find surprising?
Yeah.
That Bernie was born in New York, right?
Yep.
For 18 years, lived here first 18 years of his life. Hillary is not New Yorker. She's from Arkansas.
Correct.
I'm surprised that Bernie hasn't played that up more while he's in New York.
Well, the problem you have there is she was the U.S. Senator from New York.
I know that,
So
but she's still not a New Yorker.
Right, she's not a New Yorker, but she was elected from the state of New York. They have voted for her in the past.
Right.
They voted for her husband a couple times in the past.
Right.
So I think people identify with the Clintons quite well in New
But
York.
I'm just surprised that they haven't took a shot at it like
Well, at
that.
the same time, she's living there now, and Bernie's not. Bernie
Right,
was there his first
right.
18 years and left.
Right,
She
right.
came to New York.
Right.
So I think it makes it a little bit harder for him to do that. If he was still living there, it'd be one thing.
And how about when Bernie, nailed her about not being qualified and all that stuff, and then Charlie Rose stuck it to him. When he was on Charlie Rose really got him to.
Yeah, I think Bernie backtracked on that.
Yeah, way too much.
Yeah,
he should have stayed with it.
You got to be careful the way you attack people sometimes.
Right.
Because sometimes it can hurt you more.
That's right.
And
he stayed away from that for the most part up until that point.
Yes, he has. The only one who doesn't seem to hurt is Donald Trump. He seems to be able to do these things and not have a backlash. Again, we're talking of Republican primary voters.
Right.
You saw the establishment last week in Wisconsin really go after Trump, and he lost that primary. But the question is now, is Donald going to bounce back? And it looks like next week in New York, he will bounce back.
He'll bounce back in New York.
In a big
yeah.
way.
Yes, he will. He will bounce back in a big way because it's New York.
But will it be enough to get him going to get, I think he needs like 60% of the remaining delegates in order to clinch it on the first ballot.
And again, as we talked about, maybe Cruz won't take them all from him, but Kasich will certainly.
Kasich will take some, it looks like.
Especially in the industrial part of the country.
I think Pennsylvania, I think Cruz and Kasich are running fairly close to each other. But Trump had a lead there also.
Yeah, yeah. But it's when you do a poll,
yep.
How many people do you usually poll in a poll?
If we're doing a poll for WPRI TV and the Providence Journal, we poll about 500 voters in the state, registered voters in the state of Rhode Island. Right. Combination of landlines and cell phones. You know.
Okay, when you decide on, how do you decide on who to poll?
Well, we buy a sample from a sampling company of the voters geographically in the state. From each area, but we also, it's very important to get the right mixture of voters.
Yes, exactly.
For example, we want, a certain number of females and males.
Right.
Age breakdown, we want a certain. Political party, we want a certain percentage of Democrats, Republican, Independents based on the registrations. And also union status, we're asking the union question.
Oh, yes.
But again, a primary poll and a general election poll are two different things. For example, we saw in Michigan, all the pollsters had Hillary Clinton well ahead of Bernie Sanders in Michigan, yet she lost it.
Right, right.
And again, in a primary, what happens is you have registered Democrats voting, but in a lot of states, independents can also vote in the same party, like in Rhode Island. So what's that mixture going to be for a pollster? Is it going to be 70% Democrats, 30% independents, or is it going to be 60-40? That makes a difference. Bernie did very well among independent voters, Hillary among Democrats. So if you get that mixture wrong, your results are going to be wrong.
Exactly.
So it's like a science when you're doing polling to get the right mixture and to make sure you have the right demographics in your survey. If you do that, you have a pretty good survey.
Now, when you're doing a polling, when you're sitting there, when Joe Fleming is got all these numbers in front of him, and again, you're talking scientific data. You're putting all this stuff together, and these people come from this area, East Greenwich. These people come from Providence or North Providence. These people come from Westerly, and the ages and all that stuff. You got to drive you crazy.
Well, it's all computerized. I mean, we take
we take
the data.
You're right. Now it's a lot different.
It goes to my computer person, and we get the data back with all the crosstabs already laid out by age, by sex, by union status, by political party. So I can look right away and say, okay, in this race, here's who they're voting for, the young people, the older people, and where the spread is. You get some pretty good ideas there.
Wow.
I was going to say, we saw it a couple of years ago on Channel 12 when we did the surveys in the Democratic primary for governor. We saw that Gina's primary supporters were a lot more solid than Angel or Clay Pell's supporters.
Right.
And so we knew her supporters weren't going to probably move. Her base vote was pretty solid. So you pick up those things from the survey.
Oh, yeah. And it's nice to be on the money, though, isn't it?
You try the best you can. Again, it's a snapshot of when you take it.
Right.
So it may not be the same results a week from now. People's opinions change.
Now, speaking of opinions, last but not, and I want to get this off because we got to finish up here, but I do want to make mention of this to you, Joe, and to the voters and the people out there. When you go across, you ever been to Canada? You ever drive to Canada?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you notice when you go across the
Well, when I was there last fall, Niagara Falls, that's where it was.
No, what's the first thing you notice when you go into Canada? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind when anything you see, anything in front of you? You look, you've gone across the border, you're looking, and what do you notice about what's absent?
Billboards.
I was going to say litter.
Yeah.
Litter. It's cleaner. It's a lot cleaner, and that goes into my philosophy of pride, and that's what I think. Besides what we talked about earlier, and I wish we could get into it more, and we're going to have you back to talk about this, about the lack of pride that in Rhode Island and the second tier mentality we have. We think of New York and Boston as the biggies, and we're like the step brother or stepsister or something.